Toyota Hilux, a pickup truck, and honestly, it's the most reductive and boring way of describing it. Because if you ever looked into what these things have done, you quickly realize that Hilux is less of a vehicle and more of a cockroach. And I mean it as a compliment. It survives anything: wars, floods, deserts, Top Gear, and probably it will survive the heat death of the universe. So, today I want to tell you about the Toyota Hilux and why a truck designed to haul tools somehow became one of the most legendary vehicles on this planet. Let's start with the name. Hilux is a combination of high and luxury. Yeah. The truck, famous for being indestructible, was originally named because Toyota wanted it to be fancy or sound fancy. I know, it sounds like naming a tank a Comfort Plus. The first Hilux appeared in 1968. Back then it was small, and I mean it was tiny. By modern standards it looks less like a pickup truck and more like something your local plumber would use to transport 3 potatoes and a screwdriver. Under the hood was 1.5 liter engine producing 70 horsepower. And today your average grocery getter gets at least 110. But that wasn't the point. What was the point? Simplicity. Simple engine, simple suspension, simple everything. And that would become the secret sauce of the Hilux. Second generation arrived in the 70s. More power, more comfort, still looked like a truck, still worked like a truck, and that's where things were less boring, I think, because around this time Toyota began exporting Hiluxes everywhere, and I mean everywhere. Australia, Africa, Europe, South America, Middle East. Anywhere with roads, anywhere without roads, anywhere where roads had once existed but had since become suggestions. And if it had a possible buyer, Hilux was there. Now let's talk about something important: reliability. Everybody says the Hilux is a reliable vehicle, but what does that actually mean? Well, imagine you have a truck. Now imagine you don't service it. You ignore weird noises. You forget oil changes. You overload it, you drive it through reverse. Then one day you turn the key, it might need to crank a little, but it still starts. That's Hilux. Toyota engineers built these things to work in places where breaking down was not an issue of inconvenience, it was a survival situation. If your truck dies in the middle of Los Angeles, you call it tow truck. If your truck dies in the middle of Sahara, well, good luck. The fourth generation brought diesel engines in the spotlight, and diesel was the perfect thing for the Hilux. Finally, you have some low end torque, good fuel economy, and the ability to run forever. Essentially. Some of these diesel engines are so durable that owners measure lifespan not in kilometers but in geological areas. One of the most famous engines, the 3-liter 1KD FTV, turbocharged diesel, plenty of torque, favorite among the people who actually use their trucks for truck things and not just posing outside coffee shops and whatnot. I'm looking at you, Dodge owners. Then came the 6th generation, and suddenly the Hilux turned from a regular work truck into something decently comfortable. Air conditioning, better interiors, actual safety features. Luxury. Remember the name? High luxury. It only took them a couple of decades to start getting some luxurious things. Now we need to talk about one thing. Sorry. The thing. Top Gear. In 2003, Jeremy Clarkson and the crew got hold of an old Hilux. They tried to destroy it. They crushed it. Dropped stuff on it, set it on fire, submerged it in the ocean, dropped a caravan on it. They put it on top of a building and demolished the building, and truck survived. Barely, but it survived. With basic tools, it got back to running again. And at that point, Hilux stopped being a pickup truck and it became a myth. I fucking hate English. You could tell somebody a Hilux survived a meteor strike and they'd probably believe you. Look at that thing! 7th generation arrived in 2004. Bigger, more powerful, more refined, available with several diesel and gasoline engines, depending on the market. you got it from, obviously. This is also where Hilux started becoming popular with different off-road enthusiasts. Solid reputation, strong aftermarket support, parts available almost everywhere, and it had enough ground clearance to make roads optional. If you're wondering why Hiluxes show up in so many documentaries filmed in remote places, that's why. When you need a vehicle that absolutely has to reach somewhere, anywhere, Hilux is usually on the shortlist. Then we arrive at the 8th generation, the current one. It was launched in 2015, completely redesigned, stronger frame, improved suspension, more technology, kind of a downside to me, more comfort, and yes, it still has all the things to do truck things. One of the most popular engines today is 2.8 liter turbo diesel. Depending on the version, it makes around 200 horsepower, which doesn't sound crazy, until you remember that torque is what matters in a truck. And this thing has plenty of torque. Enough to tow, enough to climb, enough to convince a mountain that moving would be easier. There is also a GR Sport version, which is Toyota's attempt at making Hilux slightly angrier or slightly sportier. Better suspension, angrier styling, more performance-focused tuning. Basically, a Hilux that drank a shitload of energy drinks. The funny thing is that despite all the improvements, the philosophy never changed. Hilux was never supposed to be the fastest, or the most luxurious, or the most technologically advanced, or the most compensating. It was supposed to work every day for years, in places where vehicles have no business surviving, that is. I have to mention technicals in this video and the Toyota War. Toyota War was the final part of Chad-Libyan War, named this way after an extremely abundant use of the exact pickup truck I am talking about today. There is a lot of text that I written originally, which I will skip. Read about the conflict if you like. There is some interesting cars in there, obviously. But here are some technicals made during the war. During the war in Ukraine, Hilux once again has found its calling, being rough, tough and reliable. It was used for a lot of things. Same stuff as everywhere. Support, technicals, medevac, you name it. Yes. Most of the pictures I have shown are trucks like Mitsubishi L200, Toyota Land Cruiser or Nissan Navara, just because it's kinda hard finding the pictures of specific vehicle models in such large amount of information. A Toyota Hilux is one of those vehicles that earned its reputation the hard way. Not through advertisements, not through hype. It did so by spending decades proving itself again and again and again and again. And honestly, if civilization collapses tomorrow, I fully expect three things to survive: cockroaches, Nokia 3310s, and diesel Hilux somewhere in the desert, still running on questionable fuels and pure spite. Thank you for watching. Tell me about your favorite car. Next video we're looking at a car that has a feature that not even the most fancy Maybach has. Good luck, auf Wiedersehen и до побачення. A truck designed to haul tools somehow became one of the most legendary vehicles on this planet.